So let's start with your life stories.
Oh, gosh.
I feel like this. I'll not go first.
Waiting for the perfect moment.
Okay, I'll start with a story.
Welcome back to Artful Pods of Wisdom, where we ideate, examine, discuss, and chat about creativity, being, and the world of arts, artists, and the life in between it all. In this episode, we're diving into a theme that's both challenging and liberating, embracing imperfection and letting creativity reign. With Elben Capule, a pianist, accompanist, musician, and music producer, and Victoria Nguyen, accompanist, musician, lead music manager, and performer, along with Robyn MacNair, artist and arts administrator of Santa Ana Unified, and your host, Sofia Cuevas. We often hear that practice makes perfect, but what if chasing perfection is actually holding us back? Today we're exploring how letting go of the need to be perfect can unlock new levels of creativity, authenticity, and connection. Whether you're an artist, educator, or simply someone who loves to create, we welcome you to the conversation, where we find beauty in the messy and embrace flaws as necessary in our story to joy and passion in creation. Let's join the conversation.
When I was in fifth grade, I had Mr. Whalen as my fifth grade music teacher. And we had a piano in the classroom. Actually, it wasn't my fifth grade music teacher. It was my fifth grade teacher. We did not have music back in the day. So he played the piano, and we sang and did things. And I got cast as Mary in the Christmas show. That may not be PC anymore. To sing a solo. And then I sang the first time. And of course, that was very nerve-wracking. And I didn't get a lot of coaching. And for some reason, he did pick me. However, the next day, I sang again because we had more than one performance. And he said, "You're really pitchy," and gave me some critical feedback. And I remember feeling so ashamed. That's when I stopped singing. So I get to be around a lot of music people, and I sing in the car sometimes. I have sung in choirs or with groups of people, and as a kid I used to love being in the choir and do things, but I stopped pursuing my hopes of being a singer, I guess.
Well, and so much so because of that level of like, oh, it's not perfect, it's not what they want.
Exactly.
It stopped you from other arenas of exploring, discovery of your own voice. Whoa.
Yeah, and that little fifth grader has lived in here for a long time. I'm getting over it. It's taken me obviously a long time. And she's coming out in other ways. As a practicing visual artist, as a dancer, take a student of Ballet Folklorico and experiencing those things. Whew, talk about grappling with imperfection in the dance class. But it's so good for my brain. So hopefully that set the tone for you all to feel safe to share.
Yeah, so, okay, I'll go next. I think, in regards to arts and such, I think I always was pushed into student leader roles when I was in band or an orchestra, and so I'm no stranger to, like, organizing large things or, like, making really huge projects and putting people together for that. I feel like, on the topic of perfection, you know, when you're starting out as like a kid being thrown into these positions for the first time, you think in your head, it has to be perfect, or I wanted it to be a specific way, I pictured it a specific way, and so if I am not able to achieve that, then it's just not going to be as good. But, you know, as I got older and I worked with more people, especially with more people in the professional world, you start to realize that the value was never in the perfection of it. Like, something that makes an event good or a show good or any work good is the essence of the people that you're working with and the essence of what you're trying to make, more than it is about particularities, this person coming in at this moment, this person saying this exact line. Because actually I've found that some of the imperfect moments in a lot of the shows that I've put together have been the most memorable or like the most authentic feeling. And so I think I've really grown since that point to where I think I'm actually a much better collaborator and a better artist because I accept the fact that perfection is never really the point of it. If anything, I think striving for it, sometimes you forget what the point of it really is and what people really remember.
Thank you for saying that. And I think that's the beauty of live theater. I just watched a whole documentary about the history of comedy. And so I was going through a lot of different scenarios, including like improv and sketch comedy and all of those moments that we've enjoyed so much that were the imperfect flubs that we would call outtakes, but how many people leaned into that. When the characters would break or talk to the fourth wall, and it was imperfect, and we loved it because there was a connection there, or it helps us feel like, oh, that's something we can strive for. Because one of the things that makes me crazy is how we meaning a lot of people out there are like, I'm not an artist, I don't have any talent, I can't do it. As if this is for the talented, perfect people who somehow have acquired something extra special, when everybody put in gajillions of hours to learn and be in process and engage in a practice to get them to where they are. And everyone can do it, maybe at various levels. It's still a process. And I think when I realized I need to just stay in process and things will come out over time and let go of a perfect product, that's when the magic happened, just like you're describing, Victoria.
Well, it's also why we patronize the arts. It's why we pay for what we watch and what we do and what we see and what we want.
Because I tell my students all the time, whether adult students or young students, like, it's cool. I still make mistakes. I've been playing piano for, over 30 years, and I'm still making mistakes left and right, whether I'm in practice or in person, but most people don't notice. And that's why I tell them, most people don't know. They don't know it took you 30 takes to get that vocal take or that piano line or whatever. They don't know. They just hear the one that we're like, that's the one. Even with Sabrina yesterday when we were filming her back there, we did like 4 or 5 takes. And she was very apologetic. She's like, I'm so sorry for messing up. I'm like, it's cool. We do it. Like, this is part of it. Yeah, this is part of it. It's totally cool.
Well, I kind of want to go to the, filming. I'm going to go to filmmaking.
Cool.
Back in the day, they had film, which was expensive, is expensive.
Tell me about it.
And so when you did takes, it was like, get this one right, because you don't want to pay for the film. Now, the access, right, to be able to do it again, or the privilege of having paper and crumple up the paper, throw it away, crumple up the materials. For any artist, adult, student, or otherwise, and everyone in between, there's a fear of, if I mess this up, do I have another chance? And I guess when you start getting into the adult era, what does that other chance look like? And I think that's where that idea of perfection starts hitting a little too hard, where if it's not perfect, I've messed up and I have no next chance. And for students, and maybe that's, we adults put that on students of like, you're not always going to have another chance. And so
I have been in classrooms and watching instructors say, hey, if you don't get this just right, then they're going to be mad at you by the time you get to high school and other things. So we put the fear of God into like, oh, and our kids are different since the pandemic. They need to be taught differently and given space to be vulnerable and try. And what was that quote I sent to you the other day? If there's a lot of pressure and you're in a time crunch, some of us just shut down. We need space to create. Everyone's a creator, but also like, don't put me under pressure. You put me in a room and everybody's creating something, and I'm like frozen, paralyzed, because I needed time to generate an idea.
It's funny because I do a lot of social media for our department, and I think that greatly ruined a lot of young people's perception of what it means to be successful and the timeline of what it takes to get there. Because a lot of people see is that end product, like, oh my goodness, this person has 1 million followers. Look at all the views they're getting. And the numbers game, oh, that's the worst.
I know.
As an adult, it's like money. That's our numbers game. Like, how much money are we getting? But like for a young person, but even adults too, they put out a video and they're like, oh, I saw this person put out a cover or their comedic bit and they got like at least 100,000 views. And then you put something out and it's like 200 and you're just like,
Wah, wah.
wah, wah. So I think there's a lot of encouragement that needs to happen in the younger generation just because, and even giving them that perspective that I just shared, like, hey, you don't see that whole process that it took for so-and-so to get there. My history is as a classical pianist. That was like my whole upbringing. Started accompanying choirs at 13, got paid in Taco Bell by my choir teacher. She got in trouble for always pulling me out of class for that, but it's okay. I like Taco Bell. But the classical pianist thing, I did a lot of competitions. I'm 50-50 on competitions. I think it depends on the child. I think it really worked great for me in the sense that I felt what it was like to fail over and over again. And I also felt what it was like to win. And it was like, man, I'm chasing that feeling of being on top and being the best and really pushing. But I also know what it feels like to be like, I really went for first, but I fell short and got third, and that's okay. And to just keep going no matter what, just because I got third place didn't mean. There's times I didn't place in these competitions, and that didn't make me be like, all right, well, I suck at piano. I'll go do something else.
You had good emotional intelligence. Maybe I didn't. And maybe that was my upbringing and what was going on in my life and what our kids are dealing with. And again, the more chances that you have, the better to build that resilience. Because in our line of work, whatever artistry you practice, lots of rejection. And you have to get used to it over and over and over again.
It's amazing how one moment of criticism can stay with us, shaping our perceptions and limiting our creative potential. And although we might know that imperfection isn't a flaw, it's a vital part of our growth, the sting of failure and what is deemed imperfect still finds its way into a space of fear within each of us. In a world where perfection often feels like the goal, it's the imperfect moments, the missed cues, the unexpected improvisations that truly make art and life feel alive. We're seeing a shift, especially among younger generations, from competition to collaboration, where connection and authenticity take center stage. It makes us think, how can we, as artists and educators, embrace imperfections to build resilience and foster communities that celebrate these flaws as the heart of creativity and individualism?
I have waited a long time to come out from behind my shell, if you will, doing things and also in and out. But I'm committing more and more to doing it because it's who I am and I need to be my fully expressed self. And it depends on what your rubric for success is, right? And this whole conversation reminds me of the book, The Gifts of Imperfection by Brené Brown, because she talks about this, and there's 10 things you can survey yourself about to see where you're at and gauge in our embracing our full selves. Because we're all imperfect. So to Elben's point, we're just running around in a world that we're curating that's like, here, look at me like this, when really I'm like this. And how do we allow our full selves to be seen? Because that's how we live our fully wholehearted lives.
So, like, what's the fear that keeps us from, like, flourishing in that sense and going after what we want? I think it all does tie into the concept of perfection. I think it kind of touches on what we were talking about a bit, the way that we consume art, how much art there is out there, and the way it's presented to us is very different now. There's just way too much of it, and way too much of it that's only presented in a very curated fashion, because, I mean, we only have enough attention span to see so many things at one time. You're probably only going to see the cream of the crop. And so then I think that people get scared to go. I mean, actually, a lot of my peers that are trying to do music as well, they get stuck in this loop where they say, oh, I'll release the song next month, and then it's been a year and I haven't heard anything from it. It's because there's this fear of, I put this thing out, this represents because no one's going to give me more than 5 minutes of their attention. And so I don't want the first thing I put out to be subpar. Because when you start out, people tend to compare you to like artists that blew up very early, like Billie Eilish blowing up super young, or like even some people talk about Justin Bieber still, you know, when he was a teen. But I think when people focus on those examples, they're the outliers, you know? It's like what they say, like an overnight sensation is like 10 years of work or something like that. The moment that they fall into this mindset where they think that I have to put, my first product has to be that's my standard, it's such a skewed mindset. It keeps them from wanting to ever try because they're afraid of it.
I think the first one's the hardest, too. Once you get that first one out, you shared kind of like what we were going to discuss here, and you were talking about the fear of failure, and I was thinking about myself, and I have failed many times, and I actually almost feel like I don't fear failure anymore, and I can't even think of, I was trying to really like think like, oh, where was a failure where it led to like a success? I don't think I've had a moment like that. Like if I failed, it just kind of just failed. So
Nice.
there was not like a woo. It was just a
You took the leap and you survived. That's the myth.
yeah.
We have to debunk the thinking that there is some kind of failure, because it's really only information in your growing journey. Because Victoria, you caused me to think of a few things, and to this point, we evolve. I'm not who I was years ago. I don't do, a lot of life has happened, so I have my lived experiences inform the directions and the things that I do. If I stuck and was the same, then that would be also a tragedy.
Failure is often seen as the opposite of success. But what if it's just another step in the creative process? What if, by embracing failure, we unlock new levels of creativity and resilience? In a world that fears mistakes, how do we teach ourselves and others to see failure not as an end, but as a crucial part of the journey toward innovation and self-expression? Too often we get caught up in the final product, the polished performance, the perfect painting, forgetting that the real value lies in that process. It's in the hours of practice, the moments of doubt, and the breakthroughs that creativity truly flourishes. Let's listen in.
It's hard because I think this is not like just a question of like the child's environment as they're growing up. I also think it's a question of the changing environment in general, because again, you know, social media, internet, everything's globalized. You see everything ever, pretty much. And it's tough because you can even look at like videos that kids took in high school, like maybe 10, 20 years ago. Like they're a lot more free. They're not afraid to be silly. Being cringe was not really a concept, right? I hate the word, because I feel like that's a lot of why kids don't partake in things or hesitate to partake, because they don't want to be cringe. They don't want to be embarrassing. They don't want to be perceived as that way, because they're so used to looking up to people that present very filtered versions of themselves all the time, especially with Instagram, TikTok. Even it doesn't even have to be an influencer. It could even just be someone they think is cool at school and such. And so they get so used to thinking that that is how people are like, and this other part of me that wants to be a little messy or wants to just like goof around, that's not normal. And
A filtered life.
a very filtered life, and especially with technology making it so much easier to just completely isolate yourself from others. Kids especially have less of those like genuine, like, let's just goof around moments, and they worry too much about how they look. And I think that and that's just like a general like thing that we've evolved to because of the increase in social media and technology. And so it's hard to navigate that, because everything seems to be moving in that sort of more isolated direction.
I'm curious back to Elben of like, I failed a lot of times, and it was just to fail. That's where it was a failure.
And now he's not
and
afraid of
okay.
it.
But now he's not afraid of it. But I'm still curious about the maybe pang of the failure, or the emotional what Robyn was talking about, where it's you feel safe to fail. Have you showcased that failure?
I haven't, but it's actually part of my social media strategy for my personal brand this next year.
Wow.
We're
To
getting
just
a sneak peek.
yeah, just to like talk about everything I've been through, because back, I'm gonna call it 15 years, because I like, in my head, that's kind of where it all started for me to be like, I'm gonna try to be an artist, or try to make it as an artist, whatever that meant 15 years ago. And there was no really book. I don't think there is. I don't think there ever will be, because it just changes so much based on whatever your art form is, based on what year it is, based on what new social media platform is out, there's so many things. But I think there are tenets of like, don't stop kind of thing. You are gonna hear no a million times. I look back at some of my emails and some of my memories of like these really people I had no business talking to or even proposing things to. I have this weird audacity to just ask anyways kind of thing. And then they tell me no. And I'm just like, oh, that's fine. That's cool. And some of them tell me yes. I'm just going to share this funny story because it was one of the things in my failures that I wrote. Because I was just like, oh, here's every way I failed. One of them.
That sounds so terrible.
It's his learning journey.
No, at the bottom of the list.
Labeled it failure, but it's a learning journey.
At the bottom of the list, it was like, but it took me to where I am now.
Yeah.
And kind of like to where I still don't have fear and now have funny stories like this one I'm about to share. My first recording experience when I was like, hey, I'm going to record something. I like this producer, or maybe he'll give me a shot. That guy did give me a shot. And then the business talk started to come. So he's like, my manager's gonna email you, talk money and all this stuff. Is green the term that I was very green. So I was just like, I don't know, I have this much money. What does that get me? And this person was like, that gets you, I think he said 3 or 4 days. I was like, okay. And he's like, how many songs do you wanna record? I was like, 7. I like that you laugh, because you know that's not gonna happen. And the guy was like, you might get 2, but probably 1. And in my head, I was like, I don't want to spend that much money. Anyways, I think I still have the email, the back and forth, but that person is now one of the biggest management firms in LA, manages songwriters. He even manages like Travis Kelce, because now he has a sports brand. But I think back like 15 years ago, I was talking to this guy and he just like, and I'm just like, I feel like if I emailed him now, maybe he won't remember me, hopefully, if I shoot my shot again, because I probably will, because I have that audacity.
Yeah.
I love that.
The obsession with perfection isn't just an adult struggle. It's something our students face every day, especially in an era where social media amplifies the idolization of flawless images and lives. The fear of failure, or even worse, the fear of cringe, that gut-wrenching embarrassment, can paralyze students, stopping them from taking creative risks or expressing their true selves. As educators and parents, we might unintentionally contribute to this fear by emphasizing grades, calling on students who aren't ready, or insisting that practice makes perfect. When we focus too much on the polished end result, we risk creating an environment where the fear of failure overshadows the joy of learning and creating. But what if we shifted our perspective? Instead of striving for perfection, what if we celebrated the messy, imperfect process where our students and ourselves can flourish?
Because, okay, so for example, interestingly enough, I think that when I was in school and then by the time I graduated, there was like really big changes in how people were approaching education. When I was like in elementary and middle school, it was very much, you learn what you learn, but what actually matters is the grade you get at the end, how you do on this test, how you perform in this presentation, how you wrote this essay. And so you kind of grow up and then there's this format. It's like, oh, you do all this, but you have to eventually build up to this end point, and that is the only thing that actually really counts. But then as I got older, even people complain about Common Core math being, incorporated. But what I got from that was just the idea that they wanted kids to understand more the process of it. The process is more important than the actual, the end product. Like, don't memorize the formula, understand why you're using it in the first place, and grow that practical understanding, right? And so then that also happened with art, because art became a class. And teachers had to grade you and find a way to quantify what you learned in class, because they treated art as just like any other academic class. Because I mean, how else would they have known how to give a kid a grade? And so then a lot of kids, their first exposure to art is in school, in art class, or they had to join band, had to join choir because of like the arts requirement and such. And so they just, since it was first exposed to them that way, they will forever think, oh, how I perform at this last concert is great. Or, oh, only the top kids get their paintings displayed at the gallery. Or, oh, only these kids get to play. I don't get to play because I'm not as good as them.
Yes, I know. Because where are those little 4-year-old Sophias? I was a little, 5 and 6, dancing with my sister. We would watch the dancers, and so I was the older sister, so I was the lifting one. And we would wear my grandmother's fancy nightgowns and try to recreate what we did. That's what early artists do. They copy. That's what you were saying. You were trying to copy, Elben, and then come into your own and find your own voice. Because at the end of the day, this is about your voice. It's about the voice of Victoria and Sophia and Elben and Robyn. And we're just contributing our voice in the world in unique ways. How do you get to be seen? We want to be in the practice of seeing and hearing other people and telling their story in the human element. Maybe that's the significance of, in an AI world, I can get rid of all that tasky stuff so I can spend more time in the relationships so that I can build my human connections, because that's what we need.
A lot of artists, and even just the current trend in aesthetic, people love things that are slightly imperfect, or artists will show times that they mess up to humanize themselves. So to be imperfect is to be human. And so it's odd to think that that's not a part of everything.
Thanks for joining us on this journey of embracing the perfectly imperfect. It might sound cringy, but remember, it's not about getting everything right. It's about enjoying the process, making mistakes, and growing along the way. Let's leave behind the pressure to be flawless and instead celebrate the beauty in our quirks and cringe moments. Keep creating, keep evolving, and keep being unapologetically you. Until next time, thanks for joining the conversation.
All I was going to say is have fun, play, and be fearless. It's a good time.
Good job. I like that.